So, how racism hurts white people, part 2. Yesterday, I was basically saying that part of the reason that racism hurts white people is because it's illogical. And I had alluded to the fact that, one of the ways that I thought that it could hurt is that it could be a central idea or theme for encouraging other illogical thought, along the lines of the broken windows theory, whereby, that there's that theory that basically wanted to have zero tolerance. I don't agree with the zero tolerance part, but I do think that any kind of illogical thinking just breeds more illogical thinking. And even if it didn't breed any illogical thinking, it's like having a pimple on your face. Okay? Even if having the pimple there doesn't bring other pimples, do you want to have a pimple on your face? Being illogical is not a good thing. So why would you want to have that carrying around in your head, even if it's an unconscious thing? You see a black person or Hispanic person or an Asian person or whatever type of person, and you are suddenly thinking illogical thoughts. Who wants that? Even if it's unconscious, and even if you are able to push those thoughts to the bottom of your head, or so you think, who wants to have that? Now, an example of how this crazy illogical thinking can work is there was a while ago, and I would have spoken about this in some other video, there was this thing that was going around that showed that the number of attacks, let's say violent attacks, that white people reported. And they were showing that about 15% of the attacks were from black people. That's what was reported, I guess, to the Justice Department or whoever collected those statistics. And they were saying that 50% were from white people, and this was from this other amount, and that was from that other amount. Now, when you add up the whole number of black people, that, it's 15%, right? But when you take the raw number, it might be something like, let's say, 500,000 attacks, okay? And then when you took the statistics for the amount of attacks that black people say that a white person attacked them, it was a small amount, right? Or a much smaller amount, let's say 20,000, all right? Now, those weren't the actual numbers, but let's just use those for a second. Now, the whole idea was that the person who was using that information, they were saying, look, black people say that they are being attacked 20,000 times. And look, white people have to endure 500,000 attacks from black people. Look how many more attacks black people are inflicting on white people than white people are inflicting on black people. And it was like, whoa, gotcha kind of thing. Black people are so violent. No wonder white people have to worry about that. And somebody I know posted this, and they said, interesting. And I know that person is of a particular, to me, illogical, slightly crazy leaning. So, I had already seen this thing, and I already understood that it was stupid. Now, you might say, why? Why is it stupid? Look at the amount, 500,000 compared to 20,000. That's crazy. We have to do something about these black people. Well, the thing about the numbers is that black people represent 12 to 13% of the US population. And they also represented about 15% of the violent attacks. That means that 13% of the people in America were responsible for about 13% of the attacks. That's it. That's in line. And it means that 50% of the people, which were white people, non-Hispanic white people, let's say, represented like 50 or if you want to, white people represent 60% of non-Hispanic white people represent 60% of the population. So if you could, kind of schmooze it again the same way there. I don't think the figures are really exact, but what you get is the percentage of attacks by each ethnic group were representative of their percentage in the population. Black people were not responsible for 100% of the attacks on white people. They weren't responsible for 50% of the attacks on white people. They were responsible for a similar amount of attacks as their proportion in the population. If you, snapped your fingers and you turned all those black people white, there wouldn't be anybody special. There wouldn't be extra violent people. There wouldn't be, extra docile people. They would just be people. By focusing on this huge number compared to this other smaller number, one was becoming, it was useful to do what it was trying to do, which was to make people upset, but it was based on trickery and deception. And these are other points that I wanted to bring in, so I'll just say that this is illogical thinking and look at what it can do. And I suppose that story is applicable to the next way that racism hurts white people, because it creates unnecessary fear. This belief that you always have to be worried about what black people are going to do. And there are all of these people who every day are many orders of magnitude fearful of the black people that they interact with and that they meet. As we can see in the news, there are all of these incidents where something that a white person would do that you wouldn't be worried about, a black person is doing it, and now you're concerned. Now you're like, oh my God, what might they do? They might beat me up. They might rob me. They might. Who wants to have, and okay, forget about it. Let's not call it fear. Let's call it concern. Let's call it worry. Let's call it whatever you want to call it. When you're watching the news and you're seeing what this minority did and that minority did, and then, is that a good thing to have in your chest, that feeling of fear that you have every time you see somebody, or concern, or worry, or awareness, whatever word that you want to use? Is that a good thing to be always hyper aware of what's going on anytime you see somebody of this particular race? Is that helpful to you? How many people have died because of heart attacks as a result of this? Or, they might just be unhappy, uncomfortable wherever they are because they feel that there's at least one minority around. And it's just, oh my God. And there's that fear, or that concern, or that worry. And, some of my points, I guess, are going to blend into each other, but I feel that they're distinct points, right? Now, there's that fear, concern, that worry, that awareness, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is the other way that racism hurts white people is because it's a distraction / red herring / whatever it is that you want to call it. Because, something doesn't have to be a fear or you don't have to be afraid of something for it to distract you. A fly can be buzzing around, and that's a distraction, right? If it's a bear is running around, it might also be a terrible distraction, but now you're introducing the component of fear. And I think that racism for white people can be this distraction. This is like, you're supposed to be concentrating on your work, but that you have this black employee who's working for you, and you have to double check his work. So now you can't really concentrate on whatever it is that you're doing. Or that you have this mission where you want the country to go and what you believe. But somebody can easily distract you by saying this, distracting and now illogical thing that, hey, it's minorities, they're taking your jobs, right? Or this other minority, they're doing this. And suddenly you've lost focus as to what you were trying to do or trying to accomplish, because somebody has given you this red herring, like a dog that you give like this really smelly herring or tuna to and say, go boy, run after that. And instead of being focused on what you wanted to accomplish, suddenly you are distracted and it's immigrants that are responsible for this. And people can lead you, just like Donald Trump can lead certain people, and other people can lead people because of that. They have this red herring that they're giving to you. Hey, this is the reason why. This is the reason why. Go for it. Now, I wanted to go back to the first point about it being illogical. And I now remember why it was that I wanted to come with that second point, because it makes these other points more clear, right? So I started off today saying that, to begin with, racism was illogical, right? Because some people might think, well, that fear is necessary, because remember that example that you gave with the 500,000 people and the 20,000 black victims? Yeah, we have to worry. Now, I would have thought to myself that it would be clear that black people are not responsible for 100% of the attacks on white people. They're not responsible for 50%. They're responsible for the amount of, a similar or corresponding ratio of attacks to their ratio in the population. Now, I would have thought that would be enough, but I'm sure that there's some people, once we talk about fear, once we talk about distraction, their heads would be like, yeah, but it's justified. Okay. Now, this is another reason why racism is illogical. We know that from evolution, maybe you don't believe in evolution, but I'll go back to it with using God or whatever it is that you want. We know that evolution says that everybody evolved in Africa. If you're going to evolve in Africa, there's a lot of sun there. So you probably should be dark, i.e. black. So it means that in the beginning, everybody was black. Okay? Now, some people left Africa and they became white, they became Asian, they became Native American. Was there some kind of test that the people who left Africa had to pass in order to be allowed out of Africa? Was there somebody asking what is the wing speed of an unladen swallow? And if you couldn't answer, you get thrown back into Africa, or you just die? No, it was just random people that left Africa. Just random people. And some of them became white people, and some of them became Asian people, some of them became Australian natives, and some of them became Native Americans. So if you have a random smattering of people that became everybody who's outside of Africa, then the people who stayed in Africa, there would be nothing really special about them either. So the idea that you can know what somebody is like because their ancestors remained in Africa is kind of stupid. Now, let's say you believe in Adam and Eve. God created Adam and Eve. And there's nowhere in the Bible that, describes where anybody split up. Or I guess you could say that Cain went off, and some people think that Cain became black people. Well, if he did, and they did become black people, they would have completely died out in the flood. So in a way, you can look at Noah and all of his people as being the real people, like the real Adam and Eve, if you want. And none of them were too bad. None of the descendants, nobody said like, hey, this person killed somebody and they went off. So that means that there would be nothing special about, let's say it's white people. Let's say Noah was white, and which is ridiculous, but let's say Noah was white and some members of his family went to Africa and became black. Okay? There wouldn't be anything special about those people other than the fact that they would have been chosen by God to survive on the ark. So any way that you take it, whether you take it that, the separate races as a result of evolution, or you take it as the separate races are as a result of God, there is no boundaries that says, okay, these people are good, these people are bad, these people are stupid, these people are smart. And unfortunately, this is one of the things that you find during colonization. There is no place I think of that colonizers went to and they found, or that they would not say, they didn't find the natives to be lazy and shifty and deceitful and whatever else. You could just go look. When people came to settle in America, that's what they thought of the Native Americans. When they went to Asia, that's what they thought of the Asians. When they went to Africa, that's what they thought of the Africans. Isn't it odd that everywhere that people who colonized people went, everybody that they found there, they didn't like them? So that's another reason why it's just kind of stupid. Anyway, surprisingly, there are still more reasons as to why racism hurts white people, and I'll go over them in the next one.